leads the championship, from Hiroki Kato and John Nielsen second in the dome, with Ben Collins, Werner Lutberger and Jean-Marc Gounon all fourth equal. Seventh, Lilian Brinner, Enzo Calderari and Angelo Zadra in their Ferrari, and that's how it looks in SR1. SR2 is going the way currently of Ted Bjork and Larry Alberto, although they are under pressure from Saccomano and Tonetti, with Pier Giuseppe Peroni fifth, with Bouvet, Monti and Nobili sixth equal. The charismatic Ferrari remained a great sight, being hurled around the Magny-Cours circuit by the ever-determined Pescatore, but try as he might, he couldn't do anything about Hiroki Kato, who smashed the existing pole record by just under a second. The Japanese driver put in another outstanding lap to claim the team's second pole of the year, although their first was given to them after the GLV Brums Ferrari's time was disallowed at Spa for being underweight. Hiroki-san had never been to Magny-Cours before, but had been busy on his PlayStation getting the perfect lap around the ultra-smooth Grand Prix circuit. The ex-Works Paynos driver had shown an impressive turn of speed lately, and that, combined with the experience and racecraft of John Nielsen and the meticulous preparation of the Den Bleu Abyss crew, has ignited the championship race. After qualifying, Big John was more than keen to offer his opinion on the race for the title straight after the qualifying session.
We're very happy. We were confident from the morning because in first practice we were quickest, and Kato was doing well in second practice, so I thought, well, let him have a go at qualifying. He looks really competent, and he showed that he was competent.
Qualifying complete, and this is how they were going to line up. The dome on pole position of Nielsen and Kato, with Pescatore and Marco Zadra lining up on the outside of row 1. Sam Hancock and Jean-Marc Gounon on the inside of row 2, with the Jan Lammers dome for company. Then the Courage lining up 5th, with Brinner, Calderari and Angelo Zadra's Ferrari alongside. The Ascari a little bit off the pace in qualifying. Ben Collins and Werner Lutberger the drivers, with the Riley and Scott of Mauro Baldi for company. Further back on the grid is the JMS Marder, and in SR2, Massimo Monti taking pole position in the Tampere Alfa Romeo, with the Lola of Alberto and Bjork second, and then the Pilbeam of Martin O'Connell and Warren Carway. The scene set for a great race here at Magny-Cours for round 5 of this year's FIA Sportscar Championship, and this is going to be a very exciting race indeed. Race day here at Magny-Cours. Jan Lammers, you can see, standing by the car, ready to climb aboard the Black Dome and make his way out onto the circuit. The crowd have been flocking in all morning. They are ready for the start of the race. And the drivers on the grid signing autographs, far from being caged animals, as you might imagine from Formula 1. And an element of good humour in all of this as well. John Nielsen, you could see there with a Viking hat on. Enzo Calderari busily signing away. The drivers signing autographs on the grid. The spectators allowed right up close to the cars. A very proud Japanese driver on pole position, of course, here. That is Hiroki Kato, and he was the man that set the fastest qualifying time. Japanese headgear versus Danish headgear. Kato and John Nielsen. Now there in the pits, look, is Werner Lutberger. The Ascari has come in at the end of its installation lap. Now Werner staying in the car, the technicians busily working away. The engine fires back up. He should be okay to get back out and reform on the grid. But this is the last thing the Ascari team need. There is everybody else, look, lined up, ready to go. There's the Kramer Lola in the hands to start the race of Jean-Marc Gounon, and Werner Lutberger now making his way back up onto the grid. A few worried faces in the Ascari pit, as you can well imagine. The South African driver then making his way up onto the line. But this, a real headache for the Ascari team.
Yeah, on the warm-up lap, the fuel line came off, and the only information I got on the dashboard was low fuel pressure, so I had to quickly try and work out what the problem was. I checked all the fuses and everything, radioed back, and it was like just a big fight all of a sudden. We didn't know what's going on. So, and then we were lucky they towed us back into the pits, so if they wouldn't have done that, that would have been the end of our race before the warm-up lap was finished, you know. So.
It was Donington last year when the Ascari stopped on a warming-up lap. Thankfully, no such problems here this year. And there is John Nielsen starting the dome with him at the front of the grid there in number 1. The starting driver there is Christian Pescatore, the slightly quicker of the two in that car. The signal being given now as the cars make their way away from the grid behind the pace car, ready for the start of the race. The 2.6-mile Magny-Cours circuit in use here this weekend, the 5th round of the inaugural FIA Sportscar Championship. Up there now to the end of the green flag lap. The pace car will peel off. The signal will be given in a few moments to get the race underway. John Nielsen then starting in the dome, making his way up towards the line. Behind him, of course, Jean-Marc Gounon, a man to watch, and we're on board with Jan Lammers. in the dome. The lights go to green, away they go. Look at this ahead of him, 3 abreast. Pescatori on the inside, Nielsen in the middle, and Gounon right round the outside. Fantastic, except that Gounon then runs wide all over the curb and onto the dirt. The Courage there going ahead. Jean-Christophe Bouillon pouncing and moving ahead of Jan Lammers. It is Gounon in the lead. In second place, John Nielsen, and Pescatori being squeezed onto the grass. Down in third place as Lammers gets all crossed up there, hangs onto a bit of a slide and carries on. The dome losing touch though. John Nielsen goes ahead there. John Nielsen leading. Down to second goes Jean-Marc Gounon, and in third place now the Ferrari of Christian Pescatori. Up they come towards the Adelaide hairpin for the first time, and John Nielsen running a bit deep into the corner, going very wide indeed. John Nielsen runs wide. Gounon goes past him. Up into second is Pescatori. Bouillon going for third, side by side for third place on the opening lap of a 2.5-hour race, and through goes the Courage. Great stuff.
John, what is the problem with the bike? What is the problem? Long pedal.
John Nielsen then telling the team he's got a long brake pedal, and that explains why he ran deep at that hairpin. So Jean-Marc Gounon leads in the Kramer Lola as they come through to complete lap 1. Very dramatic start indeed, and Jan Lammers dropping back a little bit as they come through. The Riley and Scott there look trying to make its way through under intense pressure from the Ascari of Werner Lutberger, 7th and 8th this battle. Through the chicane as they approach Chateau d'Eau this time. Alex Caffey then fending off the Ascari. Werner Lutberger diving up on the inside. Caffey goes wide, the ex-Grand Prix driver making a mistake. Werner Lutberger needing no second invitation to pounce there. You see the Ferrari behind sparking, and further back problems. We've got the 2 Lucchinis interlocked there. Jean-Bernard Bouvet and Tonetti, they have come into contact with one another. They should be able to carry on, although the cars will be a little bit damaged. Now further back, Peter Owens-Reynard running with the SR2 battle here. The Pilbeam there, Martin O'Connell, second in the class, third in the class behind him, the Lola of the American driver, Larry Alberto. Already, Massimo Monti is long gone. He's got a 2-second lead in that class on only lap 2 of the race. Down they come with Jean-Marc Gounon then leading the race at the moment by over a second from Christian Pescatori. Jean-Christophe Bouillon is closing, I reckon, now in third place as they dive down into the pit lane though comes Jean-Bernard Bouvet. Now that car damaged, remember, in the earlier contact with Tonetti. In he comes. Hopefully lots of blue sticky tape there, ready to glue the car back together again. There it is, the sticky tape goes on, the damaged bodywork being taped up, but of course this a pit stop that team could well do without. Down to the Adelaide hairpin, Jean-Marc Gounon leading, second is Pescatori, third there is Jean-Christophe Bouillon, and look, a very distant fourth now is John Nielsen in the dome, and that's Lavaggi diving up on the inside, getting past Lutberger. Giovanni Lavaggi, whose car had a clutch problem in qualifying, didn't record a time, started last of the SR1 cars, now charging up through the field. The Carlos Reutemann of the Sportscar Championship now coming good here, he's all fired up, just as we saw at Monza. When Lavaggi goes for it, he really flies. Another good result here perhaps on the cards, as in the meantime, Jean-Marc Gounon is breaking away a little bit now from the Ferrari, then in second place. Through the chicane, down to the final corner on the lap, and Jean-Marc Gounon now doing his level best to break clear of the opposition. Further back, John Nielsen in the dome, losing touch and being caught, I reckon, now by Jan Lammers. But Lavaggi, very definitely the man to watch here, absolutely flying in this Ferrari that he shares with Christian Van. That's the Judd engine Ferrari. Although look behind him, Lutberger coming back at him there. The South African driver in the Ascari doing his best to fight back as they come down towards us. So Jean-Marc Gounon, it is, in the lead of the race as he swings his way now through the chicane into that final right-hander on the lap. And diving into the pit lane there, Pescatori's Ferrari down the pit lane up to second there for his Bouillon, and there is Christian Pescatori. Down the pit lane, he must have a problem, possibly as a legacy of that first corner skirmish. Lappering already, Peter Owens-Reynard being that there. That car's already had a pit stop as well. The car was overheating early on, and he's now lapped by Jean-Marc Gounon, who dives through on the inside. Jean-Christophe Bouillon through as well. More problems in the pit lane, that's Michael Mallock's Tampoli. There's been a small fire by the look of it at the back of the car. The extinguisher, you can see, has created all the white smoke there, getting into the eyes of the mechanics. Now, meantime, Giovanni Lavaggi is hassling Jan Lammers for fourth place. The Italian well fired up here and looking to try to repeat some of that Monza form that he displayed early on in the season. The fourth place fight then, down to the Adelaide hairpin, and that's Lavaggi going through on the inside of Lammers. The Ferrari diving up on the inside, and Giovanni Lavaggi absolutely sidling up through the field. Mike Millard's Rapier 6 about to be lapped there by Jean-Marc Gounon. Being held up a little bit, and look, yes, not just a little bit, a lot. Look how close the Courage is now. Millard finally gets out of the way. Through goes Gounon, through goes Bouillon. The battle of the hyphenations then. Jean-Marc versus Jean-Christophe up towards the hairpin, and they're absolutely together, and now the Courage has a look on the inside line. Jean-Marc Gounon sits in the middle of the road there, partly looking for a way past the traffic and partly defending. Great battle then for the lead here. cars diving down once again. Jean-Marc Gounon trying to work his way through the traffic. They get past Bouvet's car, which of course made that earlier pit stop. The McKinney back in the race. Through they go. Now John Nielsen has to sort out the Rapier 6 there, and he's being held up as well. Through on the inside goes John Nielsen, and Giovanni Lavaggi is reeling him in. The Italian still charging, still catching, and John Nielsen, of course, in the car that started on pole position, don't forget, still struggling with that long brake pedal. And the Italian driver, ex-Formula 1 racer Giovanni Lavaggi, ex-Inter-Serie racer, is catching up all the while onto the back of John Nielsen's dome. Ferraris are side by side there, the VM Scuderia Italia cars as one. Pescatori losing no time at all in fighting back from that unscheduled pit stop and diving past ex-European touring car racer Enzo Calderari. Remember, in the early 80s he drove in the Jaguar XJSs, well, these days very rapid in the Ferraris, but Calderari lets Pescatori go. Jean-Marc Gounon coming now down towards that final corner. The car ahead of him is in 9th place, would you believe? The Riley and Scott of Alex Caffey about to be lapped, and that's Massimo Monti who spun. Massimo Monti, the SR2 leader, is off. Now, can he rejoin without losing too much ground? Inevitably, that's going to cost him the lead, I would have thought, in the 3-litre category. Gounon about to lap the Riley and Scott. He should be able so to do at the hairpin. In the meantime, Massimo Monti is, I think, going to get going. The marshals trying to push him out of a dangerous place. Here they come, the race leaders absolutely nose to tail at 30 minutes duration. Gounon, Bouillon, Lavaggi the top 3, but the top 2 lapping. A very well-mannered Alex Caffey keeping out of the way. A wave to acknowledge from Gounon to say thanks for giving me racing room. And through they go. 2 of France's best but underrated talents then battling it out for the lead. Jean-Marc Gounon did have a brief opportunity in Formula 1 with Minardi, and then with Simtek. Jean-Christophe Bouillon had, what, a half season, that was all, with Sauber back in 1995, although he has tested for the Williams Renault team, and more recently Jean-Christophe Bouillon familiar in the British Touring Car Championship. Through they come then, still nose to tail, battling for the lead. It's a 2.5-hour race. You might think of it in terms of an endurance race, but at the moment it looks like a 2.5-hour sprint, doesn't it? Nose to tail they come through. Now, although Bouillon has done the hard work and caught up with Jean-Marc Gounon, he still can't yet find a way by. I just wonder whether he's prepared to make the lunge or wait for the pit stops and see whether that will promote him to the lead. Let's see. Out of the chicane, swing right now, up towards the line. It is still Gounon ahead of Bouillon. The Kramer Lola ahead of the Pescarolo Run Courage over the line. The Peugeot turbo car in 2nd place, chasing after the Roush engine Lola. Another spin, that's Larry Alberto losing it. The man that was 2nd in SR2 has spun. It looks as though he got the power down a little too early. He should be able to rejoin though there in the Lola B2K40. At the moment he's involved in a rather laborious 3-point turn, and somebody else in trouble there, look, that's the Team Suara Tampoli. Well, it's got going again after its pit fire, but it's lasted only a handful of laps before Michael Mallock once again has to park the car, the team's 4th retirement from 5 races. Larry Alberto now reverses, whoops, rather precariously into the path of other cars. They all dodge round him. He should be able to rejoin, but that has cost him an inordinate amount of time in SR2 now. Race leader Jean-Marc Gounon swinging his way through the hairpin. He's pulled away a little bit. Look, this time from the Courage there, Jean-Christophe Bouillon has dropped back a little bit. The pair of them now coming up to lap Larry Alberto, the SR2 Lola, about to be lapped by the SR1 car, of course, the Kramer Lola in the lead of the race outright. Is Jean-Marc Gounon going to go diving past? Well, let's see. Here they come, down to the last corner. No, Gounon dives for the pit lane instead. The leader is in. So the first of the routine pit stops. Jean-Marc Gounon there with a familiar yellow helmet into the pit lane, and into the lead goes the fabled French car, the Courage in the lead. The Courage Peugeot then up front now. Jean-Christophe Bouillon fighting his way through the traffic. He's got to really go for it now, try and build up an advantage for his first pit stop. Alberto moves to one side, pulls out of the way, as into the pit lane comes Jean-Marc Gounon now. Now there is the race leader, Jean-Christophe Bouillon, breaking away from the rest of them. The Lola refueled, and Jean-Marc Gounon staying behind the wheel of the car. Back into the race he goes now. And Jean-Marc Gounon staying, I think, on the original set of tyres there. Yes, he does. Back into the race. Admittedly, he's got work to do to catch up with Bouillon, but remember, the Courage ahead of him has got to make a pit stop now. Jean-Christophe Bouillon trying to scythe his way through the back markers for the 2nd time there. Look, he's about to lap Mike Millard. Whoops, getting right in the way. Millard swatted aside over the curb. He bounces back onto the road, getting in the way of Bouvet as well. Jean-Christophe Bouillon being very decisive, and he needs to be about all of this. The slower SR2 cars there getting in the way a little bit. It's a very narrow part of the circuit there. Maybe Bouillon was being a bit optimistic, but either way, he's got past with thankfully no damage done, but that was a very close call indeed. Giovanni Lavaggi there coming up to lap Alex Caffey. The Disco Kid, as he was known in Formula 1, has really struggled this weekend. The Riley and Scott, I'm afraid, has never really looked like it's on the pace, and Caffey heading for the pit lane now. That car's had a setup problem all weekend. Caffey into the pit lane, Lavaggi goes through, and at the moment, with the exception of Bouillon, Lavaggi the quickest man on the circuit. The Monaco resident up into second place. Caffey into the pits, the team ready with new tyres to try to cure that handling imbalance that the car has. And now from the back of SR1, Giovanni Lavaggi up into a very impressive second place indeed. John Nielsen way back in third, and there he is in the dome. The GLV Brums team has had a mixed season so far, trying to pull away. John Nielsen, though, has dropped back drastically with that brake problem.
Turn 4, you want rear tyres, okay? I want you to check rear tyres. Make control for rear tyres. Front is okay, coming in now.
So John Nielsen then saying he wants the rear tyres checking but not changing. Into the pits he comes, and that is Jean-Marc Gounod, who's got a puncture, has he? Well, certainly the car's got a problem. He spin turns the car around. He'd got off the circuit, looks like at the Adelaide hairpin, heading back towards the circuit. Gets his map out, swings left, back onto the circuit. The car has indeed got a puncture. So Jean-Marc Gounod, who led the race early on, coming back to the pits at very high speed. Now, I'm not sure that's the right plan for Gounod. There is John Nielsen. There was a bit of confusion in the pits as to whether to change or just check the tyres. Well, the car is being refueled. Jean-Marc Gounod, though, with that tyre very definitely rubbing against the bodywork, heading for the pit lane, but doing so at a very rapid rate, and I reckon that's going to damage the car. You wouldn't really expect that from Gounod. The former Mercedes and BMW works driver should, dare one say, know better. Hand in the air, warning people he's going slowly. Not that slowly, though. Into the pit lane he comes. You can see that front right wheel pawing the air now, and Jean-Marc Gounod has hustled the car back in on effectively 3 good wheels. John Nielsen has refueled, he's back on his way. A new Goodyear tyre needed for Jean-Marc Gounod's car. In the meantime, we've got the SR2 battle still raging on. There goes the Martin O'Connell Pilbeam through in SR1 behind him on the road, though. There you can see Werner Lutberger, and he in turn is about to be lapped by Jean-Christophe Bouillon. 4 new tyres going on the Kramer Lola here, this unscheduled stop for Gounod. The race leader making his way down to the hairpin. Jean-Christophe Bouillon trying to lap Werner Lutberger at the Adelaide hairpin. Meantime, Sam Hancock back in the race now. New tyres on the Kramer Lola. He is back in the race. Jean-Marc Gounod explains.
Yes, it's a big shame because the car was running very well. I was using the tyres at the right value, and I was conservative on the tyre to push at the very end of my stint. It's a shame because we were in position.
Jean-Christophe Bouillon absolutely on the limit now, squeezing the car spectacularly over the curbs there. Look at the chicane. The Frenchman under no threat at all from the Lola. All of a sudden, the lead battle has rather fizzled out for the time being. And at the moment, the Courage Peugeot is dominating proceedings. Now, it remains to be seen whether or not that car can go trouble-free for the next 90 minutes. Giovanni Lavaggi is in second place, but I wonder how much longer, because look at that, the smoke from the back of the car. Giovanni Lavaggi's car smoking as it turns there through the corners. Further back, we have the Lammers Dome up into 5th place now. Now, the Dutchman has struggled all afternoon with tyre problems. Behind him is the flying Sam Hancock, trying to make up ground after the puncture suffered by Jean-Marc Gounod. The fight for 5th then, the Dome versus the Lola. Down they come. Martin O'Connell now leads SR2 very comfortably indeed. He's made 1 pit stop already, and the talented but underrated and usually underfunded ex-F3 racer has taken to sports car racing this year like a duck to water. Looks as though O'Connell and teammate Warren Carway could be on for a second win of the season. Jean-Christophe Bouillon has been in this car now for well over an hour. It's been a very long stint indeed. This part of Henri Pescarolo's strategy, no doubt. Through Chateau d'Eau they come, and Jean-Christophe Bouillon is catching the dome of John Nielsen. He's going to lap him very shortly indeed. Up the inside he goes, and JTB puts a lap on the dome, accelerating now out of the corner, up across the line, except that John Nielsen now gets back at him on the run to the Grand Courbe. John Nielsen, the pole position car in the dome, goes through, unlaps himself. You're not meant to do that to the race leader, John. But John Nielsen proving he's a true racer. Nielsen unlapping himself then from JCB once again, and that's Lavaggi out of the race. The Judd-powered Ferrari 333 SP sits by the side of the road. Lavaggi's great run has come to an end. It looks like a transmission problem, and Lavaggi is out of the race. As in the meantime, Christian Pescatore is back up to 3rd place now in this Ferrari number 1. Part of that is by some quick laps, part of that is by dint of other retirements. And now Pescatore driving very spectacularly indeed in the Scuderia Italia car. He drove the Audi at Le Mans, but now back in the Ferrari. Behind him, Mauro Baldi, you saw a shot of there. He has now taken over in the Riley and Scott. Alex Caffey complaining in the pit lane that the car still wouldn't handle, and now Mario Baldi behind the wheel of it. In the meantime, Jean-Christophe Bouillon laps the Rapier 6 once again. He still hasn't come into the pits. He's all over the curb though there through the chicane. Jean-Christophe Bouillon then swinging right up towards the line. The 3.2 litre Peugeot turbo engine looking to be unbeatable here on its own home ground in Magny-Cours. It will be a very popular win indeed, not only for the two drivers, not only for Courage and Peugeot, but for the man who runs the team, the legendary Henri Pescarolo, if this car could score a win here. Christian Pescatore heading for the pit lane once again. This is his second stop. It's a scheduled stop therefore, because this is going to see him hand over, I would imagine, to Marco Zadra. The tousled-haired Italian is ready to take over that car. The Courage there being very badly held up, look, by the SCI run Lucchini of Leonardo Maddalena. The Italian, is he going to get out of the way? He does eventually. And a rather ungentlemanly gesture there from the normally calm Frenchman Jean-Christophe Bouillon. Pescatore out, takes the seat with him, into the car, gets Zadra. And he is now set to go back out and defend the championship lead. There in number 17, Werner Luckberger, fourth place now, lapping the Rapier 6. Ian Flux having taken over that car. Vastly experienced man, of course, Ian Flux. And the Rapier 6, the creation of Mike Millard, still going strong here, having one of its better showings of the season. Marco Zadra then back into the race. The Ferrari rejoining in third place behind the Dome that has still to make its second stop. Werner Luckberger there coming up to lap the BM Autosport car of Massimo Monti. He's been delayed by that spin and an unscheduled stop as well. He's sixth in SR2, and that's a pretty bad result by their very high standards.
I have a big problem with the understeer in the fast corner. It's very difficult race, very difficult race, because it's very hot, and for driver and for the car it's very difficult.
The first corner looked very exciting with you and Gunnar and Nielsen.
Yeah, but the problem is with Nielsen, because I'm in left, so another car is in the right, so me have the first position, but so I don't know. It's the
race leader though, Jean-Christophe Bouillon, coming now down through the chicane, ready to swing right through Lycée and make his way up past the pits. The Peugeot engine car then accelerating now over the line, and a turbo engine proving that it can lead sprint races like this as well as endurance races. Behind him on the road though is John Nielsen, still struggling in that lap dome.
How are the tyres, John? How are the tyres? Okay.
John Nielsen then a lap down, still pressing on as best he can. That car running reliably. There's still the question mark, I suppose, over the turbocharged Peugeot engine Courage. It hasn't won a race before. Is it going to be able to win here? Werner Luckberger in the meantime is about to lap Leonardo Maddalena's flying banana on the pit straight. Werner, a very talented driver, but that talent not really being allowed to show itself here in France because the Ascari has been off the pace mysteriously all weekend. Now back in the pit lane, Giovanni Lavaggi, having retired from the race, has trudged in. Let's try to find out from the Italian what happened.
We had a problem with the transmission. I don't know exactly what it is because I couldn't see the car, but I lost the transmission, and it's a shame because it was a good race. I lost a lot of time at the beginning because it was not easy to overtake a slower car.
Jean-Christophe Bouillon, though, continues inexorably now in the lead, pulling away all the time. He has almost a lap's advantage over the Scuderia Italia Ferrari of Pescatore and Marco Zadra second, and John Nielsen is third now. It's a rather distant third, it must be said, in the Dome. In fourth place is Werner Luckberger with the Ascari, and of course still more pit stops to come for the leading runners. There is Werner Luckberger, Ben Collins, his teammate, and Ben will take over that car. Werner spends a bit more time in it than does the Englishman, but Ben Collins still a very quick driver nonetheless as Luckberger comes over the line, and that's Ian Flux off! With another hour still to go, Ian Flux off at the Grand Courbe. And it looks as though something has broken on the Rapier 6. Ian has gone a long way off the circuit, and the Englishman doesn't normally make mistakes. That is Val Hillebrand leaving the pit lane. He's taken over the Racing for Holland Dome from Jan Lammers. That car now down in fifth place. That team really having struggled with tyre problems throughout the weekend. Well, hopefully now it's going to run reliably to the finish. It might not have the pace of the Courage, but a good points finish here will be a good reward for the team nonetheless. Back into the race then is the Dome S101. Val Hillebrand, now the man behind the wheel. Looks to his right, clear of the white line there. That is the differential between the pit lane exit and the actual race part of the track. Sees there's no one coming, floors the throttle, carries on in the race as into the pit lane is Jean-Christophe Bouillon, the second stop for the Courage, and now he's going to hand over to his teammate Laurent Redon. Second place, John Nielsen is also set for a driver change. Hiroki Kato, the man who took pole position in that car, yet to get behind the wheel. The Dome boys are going to be looking to get that car out ahead of Zadra. Down the pit lane then comes the Dome. John Nielsen stops. The mechanics get to work to refuel the car. The driver change can take place there as well. That is Laurent Redon's courage then. He has taken over from JCB. Big John gets out. Little Hiroki-san gets in as his spare seat there, of course, because of the difference in stature of the drivers. And Laurent Redon then, taking over the leading car, is back in the race. Back in the pit lane. Kato getting aboard the Dome. And Ben Collins also leaving the pit lane now in the 4th placed Ascari, the 26-year-old, having taken over from Werner Lutberger, and he's now got to defend that place from a fast approaching Val Hillebrand. This is going to be a great battle between the two young drivers. Marco Zadra there going through, lapping the Ascari A410, and he's up into 2nd place as well now, Zadra, as Kato is still in the pit lane. Come on, Hiroki, it's a very slow getaway. You can't have a push start either, so it's up to the driver to get the car underway. He does so now, but a slow stop then by Hiroki Kato. That will drop the car down into 3rd place, but he can knuckle down now to try to catch up with the Ferrari.
There's a lot of problems on the brakes. We can't seem to brake stay in a straight line, and we'll just have to do the best we can, simply as that.
The first corner looked very exciting as well.
Yeah, we were. I think I lost a bit of paint on both sides of the car, but on the other hand, it was pretty straight, fair, and nothing really dramatic, but it was tight.
Another problem in the pit lane there, look, that is the Kramer Lola being wheeled away. We gather that it has a differential that's been smashed after Jean-Marc Goudon did that very quick lap back to the pit lane with a punctured tyre. The legacy of that damage is enough to put the car out of the race. Now that is Marco Zadra lapping quickly, much improved driver this year, and he is trying to capitalise on the advantage that he now has over the Dome in 3rd place. He's 35 seconds ahead of the S101, but he's got to make a 3rd pit stop, of course, sooner than the Japanese driver. Marco Zadra working his way through the traffic, lapping the Reynard MD there, Mark Smithson. That car, of course, had its overheating problem early on in the race when Peter Owen was driving it. Lost time in the pits as a consequence, but Zadra now absolutely flying.
We have a very nice car, very well balanced. I think we have made the right choice of tires, but we have just to drive carefully on the track because it's very slippery and it's quite easy to do mistakes. So we just have to keep our fingers crossed.
And Jean-Christophe Poulion has done the hard work in the first part of the race. Now his teammate Laurent Redon bringing the car home. Now in SR2, that is Warren Carway, who's taken over where Martin O'Connell left off. In other words, he leads SR2, but the gap is coming down because the Swedish driver Ted Bjork is catching hand over fist. He's lapping 2 seconds a lap faster now. Hiroki Kato there lapping the Pilbeam of Warren Carway, another ex-Formula 3 racer. And before long, Warren is going to see in his mirrors the yellow SRTS Lola catching up all the while. And there coming towards us is Ted Bjork, the young Swede, charging as only he knows how, and he's catching up to the Pilbeam Nissan all the while. The gap is 9 seconds between them now, and that's a spin for Val Hillebrand. Val Hillebrand has lost it at the rather gravelly Lycée chicane. He gets back into the race, but that may well have scuppered any chance at all of catching the 4th place man, Ben Collins. Marco Zadra in for his final stop. Fresh Goodyear tyres going onto that car now that he can sprint up to the flag. Now he did have a 45-second advantage over Hiroki Kato. That is going to be very tight indeed as Kato then turning his way up towards the line. Look for the Dome, look for the Ferrari. Kato does yet have to make his 3rd pit stop, of course. Zadra heading towards us, Kato coming onto the main straight now. Is there going to be enough in hand for the Ferrari? In a way, it's an artificial battle, of course, because that car there, the Dome of the Japanese driver Hiroki Kato, does yet have to make another pit stop. The gap is, what, just 3 seconds or so as they turn their way through the Grand Cours, and you can see Kato's car looking a little bit nervous there. He really is absolutely on the limit. Now Kato could well be able to dive out the inside. Yes, he does. Zadra lets him go. There's no point fighting because that Dome has got to make another pit stop. So this will all reverse itself later in the race. Kato up to 2nd temporarily, and down to 3rd for the time being goes Marco Zadra. In SR2, Warren Carway under real pressure now. Look, from Ted Bjork, the Irishman is going to have to defend very vigorously indeed. Now Ted Bjork still has to make the final pit stop, so here you have a mirror of the Zadra-Kato battle you've just seen in SR1, except that this is for the lead. The Dome being held up again there, look. That is Leonardo Maddalena, whose car has been rather wide at times this weekend, and Hiroki Kato still can't find a way past him. The Ferrari right on the tail of the Dome then. The 2nd place battle nose to tail. Kato's advantage eroded by the traffic. Down in the pit lane, SR2 leader, Martin O'Connell.
The car's gone brilliantly. We had a minor problem with one of the tyres, which forced us to make an early tyre stop, but didn't really cost us make a problem. We were going to change anyway. Just brought it forward about 7 or 8 laps. So that was fine. Car's running pretty well, pretty smoothly. We've got one minor little problem with a fuel problem, but I think it should be fine for at least to get to the end anyway.
And a bigger problem is that Ted Bjork leads the class, as Martin O'Connell was talking to, as Warren Carway has lost the lead. Ted Bjork goes ahead of him there in the Lola. The two cars are absolutely nose to tail now. Ted Bjork has to make another pit stop, of course, but Warren Carway has lost a little bit of time already there, running over the curb. He's got to hope that it's a longish stop for Ted Bjork. Of course, that will play back into the hands of Warren Carway. Hiroki Kato there, swinging his way through in the dome. Into the pit lane now comes the Ted Bjork Lola. And this has got to be a very rapid splash and dash. It should give the lead of the class back to Warren Carway. He doesn't have to stop again, but can Warren get ahead and build up an advantage? Ted Bjork now fires the car up, or does he? It's all gone horribly quiet. The car has stalled. The mechanics push the car. Now, you're not meant to do that. Push start's forbidden in the pit lane. The car has to fire up under its own volition, and so that could prove to be a very costly error on the part of the team. Back into the pit lane for its final stop now comes Hiroki Kato in the dome. Kato down the pit lane. Can he hang on to second? No, because that was Zadra going past. You saw a shot of the Ferrari then going past the pit. So Hiroki Kato now will drop down into third place. Marco Zadra through up into second place, and the Scuderia Italia team's early pit stop has helped them tremendously here. Kato back down the pit lane, back into the race. He's in third place though. But Zadra is already at the hairpin, and he is about to lap Giuseppe Peroni's Lucchini, which is third in SR2. Hiroki Kato back in the race. There is Ferrari number 1 heading for second place now. A good early stint by Pescatori, and Marco Zadra, who's done a very good job this year, now coming up to lap the Lucchini there. He passes Peroni as Ben Collins exits the pits after his third and final stop. He's now well clear of Val Hillebrand after Val had that spin earlier on, the 19-year-old in the dome, dropping back as a consequence. And Val Hillebrand will, I reckon, yet have to make a stop. Yes, in he comes for the last time. The black dome, the Racing for Holland car, started by Jan Lammers, comes down the pit lane. Not the best of results, I'm afraid, for the dome squad here as Ben Collins comes down to the Adelaide hairpin. Into the pit lane comes Hillebrand now. The car stops. He's going to stay behind the wheel. He's going to be refueled, and that is all. I don't think they're going to waste any more time by changing tyres. They're going to try to keep him on this same set. Papa Zadra there, Angelo Zadra, about to lap Renato Nobili's Tampoli. He should be able to power pass on the main straight as Val Hillebrand now rockets out of the pit lane. Lots of wheel spin, lots of tyre smoke. Is he going to be able to make it back out in time to defend the 5th place? Yes, he does, but only just. Angelo Zadra there in Ferrari number 2 has the momentum, and he might now be able to make a run as they come up towards the Adelaide hairpin. A favourite outbreaking opportunity place that. Zadra right on the tail of Hillebrand, of course, not yet up to speed, having only just left the pit lane. Dome ahead of Ferrari. Here they come up to the hairpin now. The difference between the two places worth 3 points in the championship. Val Hillebrand for Dome. Angelo Zadra for Ferrari into the hairpin now. The two of them absolutely nose to tail. Val Hillebrand has a look in the mirror, sees the Ferrari behind him, swings through the corner, and the Dome fending off the second of the two BMS Scuderia Italia Ferraris. The cars making their way through the next sequence of corners. Behind them, of course, Hiroki Kato's Dome trying to put one more lap on them. And Val Hillebrand sliding his way into the corner there a little bit, and he's gone wide, has he? Yes! The Ferrari goes wide as well to let the Dome through, but Val Hillebrand scrabbling back towards the line. Eventually he picks up pace, but he's let the Ferrari get ahead of him. A mistake there seemingly by both of them, but Hillebrand comes off worse, ran very wide indeed, very slow to recover as well, and so the Ferrari gets ahead of him. Val Hillebrand then looking now as though he's going to have more problems with the tyres, sliding all over the road on the pit straight. Even the SR2 cars now looking a little bit quicker. They are reeling him in. He just hasn't got the traction. They're coming out of that final corner. Through the Grand Courbe section once again, and Laurent Redon, you can see there, the race leader, has done a very good job indeed, having taken over this car after the 90-minute mark. The French driver controlling the race at his own pace. In the meantime, in SR2, Ted Bjork now trying to find a way past Renato Nobili's SR2 Tampoli, and through on the inside to lap the pair of them goes Laurent Redon, the man that won the French Formula 3 Championship back in 1995, racing Formula 3000 for Dams, then to Supernova, then he moved into sports cars for the JMB GS Ferrari team with Mario Baldi, and he dovetailed that with Benetton F1 testing duties, and now a very polished performer indeed in sports cars. This will be Courage's first international win since Didier Cottaz and Jérôme Ponicon won at Zolder way back in 1997 in the what was then ISRS series. The race leader then powering his way through, Laurent Redon and Jean-Christophe Bouillon on target now for a race win. Behind them though, Angelo Zadra looking very comfortable indeed in 5th place, but the Courage accelerating on to a famous victory, it would seem, here on its own home ground. French drivers, French car, French engine and legendary French team boss as well. Now there is Angelo Zadra comfortable in that 5th place. Val Hillebrand has dropped right back. Through the chicane they come. Laurent Redon has split them and he is about to start the penultimate lap of the race. The Pescarolo team has had a very difficult season this year with unreliability. That cost them wins at Monza and at Barcelona. There was also drama at Le Mans for them, where the team was on for a top 6 position, trying to match 4th overall from 2000, but again engine problems caused them to drop back in the final hours there. And then just 2 weeks ago in Estoril in the European Le Mans series, the car finished the race in the lead but was then rather controversially disqualified post-race when the driver was deemed to have ignored blue flags. Well, granted then they were up against a pretty thin field of sports prototypes, but here they've beaten the best in the world. In SR2, Warren Carway has a 12-second advantage now over Ted Bjork and is looking good for a 2nd SR2 win of the year for Martin O'Connell, for Rowan Racing and for himself. And this is going to be a great boost for the Midlands-based team after a recent poor run of form. Laurent Redon now turning his way down through the chicane. Swings right and now up towards the start and finish line once again. He's going to have one more lap to do. There's no hurry for Laurent though. He sits behind Carway and also Angelo Zadra there to lap them. As soon as he finds a clear bit of road and a big gap on the inside, then he should be able to go charging past. Accelerating now up towards the Adelaide hairpin. First of all, the SR1 Ferrari there of Angelo Zadra gets ahead of Warren Carway. Laurent Redon now sees the clear bit of road on the inside, up towards the braking area for the hairpin. Not quite close enough there to dive past, but as I say, there's no real hurry for him. He sits behind Warren Carway, and now Warren pulls to one side. Very gentlemanly, he waves him through, and Laurent Redon now puts another lap on the pill beam. And there you have the 2 potential winners. Overall, and SR1, the Courage SR2 behind the pill beam Nissan. Angelo Zadra about to be lapped as well by the Courage as they power their way on now up towards the last few corners. Angelo Zadra not exactly getting out of the way here, is he? Pulls to one side, though he doesn't, gets back onto the racing line now. And Angelo Zadra proving to be rather awkward. Admittedly, he's going at an SR1 pace, therefore that car is going to be much quicker than the pill beam that Laurent Redon has just negotiated. But right under the rear wing now, Laurent Redon dives up the inside, and Angelo Zadra tries to turn in on him there. Yeah, much shaking of the fist there by Laurent Redon, and justifiably so. Angelo Zadra not really concentrating there. Through now comes Laurent Redon, making his way up towards the final lap of the race. He's got one more lap to go. Remember, it's 2.5 hours, not a set number of laps, and he just squeezes one more lap out of the race now. He's 2.641 miles away from a first win for this car this year. It's going to be the first ever win for the Courage C60 chassis. It's also going to be the first win for Henri Pescarolo's team, and what better place to do it than on own home ground at Magny-Cours. Hiroki Kato there on target for 3rd place and 12 points in the championship for himself and John Nielsen now. He makes his way through for the final time. The checkered flag, though, is being made ready for this man, for Laurent Redon. It is going to be a very popular win indeed. He's on the last half of the last lap now. Jean-Christophe Bouillon in the first part of the race, Laurent Redon in the second part of the race have not put a wheel wrong. There is the checkered flag, look. And it's going to be waved this time to a very popular winning combination. JCB and Laurent Redon, Jean-Christophe Bouillon and Laurent Redon, the 2 drivers. And Henri Pescarolo biting his nails in the pit lane. He's come so close before to a win in this car, but today nothing surely can go wrong for them now. To the last handful of corners, Jean-Christophe Bouillon standing in the pit lane, watching Laurent Redon bring the car home. The lime green Courage C60 with its 3.2 litre Peugeot turbo engine powering the car down now towards the Lycée for the final time. Ahead of him there is Mauro Baldi, struggling Riley and Scott that's had a dreadful race. Laurent Redon goes up the inside, clips him aside there, up to the checkered flag. Laurent Redon wins here at Magny-Cours. Victory for Redon, for Jean-Christophe Bouillon and for Henri Pescarolo's Courage team. Great result for them. And SR2 won by Warren Carway, Martin O'Connell and Rowan Racing. Victory for Rowan Racing, a victory too for Laurent Redon.
For me, I just made the taxi man, and we had quite a little problem with The water of the engine was quite hot, so we have to take care about this. I had always at least one lap on the lead, so I didn't have to push, and I just have to be sure that we can arrive at the end of this race.
Henri Pescarolo, similarly, a delighted man.
We should have won in Monza, we should have won in Barcelona, so at least that happened. It's fantastic for the team. We are doing so much effort, to try to be competitive at a high level and to beat the Ferrari, which is a reference in that championship. It's very, very good for us and very encouraging.
Confirmation of the results then. Retirement for Lavaggi's Ferrari for Jean-Marc Gournant in the Kramer. A rather dismal position, I'm afraid, for Baldi and Cathy in the Riley and Scott. But a great win for the Courage of Bouillon and Redon ahead of Marco Zadra and Christian Pescatori. Cato and Nielsen third, with Werner Lutberger and Ben Collins finishing fourth, a rather subdued fourth in the Ascari. Another 20 points then in the championship for Bouillon and Redon, but 15 go the way of Zadra and Pescatori, and that will help them break clear a little bit now of Cato and John Nielsen. Colombo impersonator Marc Gallier on the podium. It's not Peter Falk, and he is making the presentations to the drivers. And a very happy Laurent Redon and Jean-Christophe Bouillon stand on the top step of the podium, victorious here at Magny-Cours. The trophies to the drivers, the bouquets of flowers to the drivers as well. And now the celebrations can get underway when the drivers have the bottles of champagne. It has been a very good race indeed here. Plenty to talk about and plenty of what-ifs. If only Jean-Marc Gournant hadn't bashed back to the pit lane on that punctured tyre, maybe the Kramer wouldn't have retired. But at the end of the day, it is a win for the Courage, a first win in the championship for Pescarolo's team and for drivers Bouillon and Redon. This is how the championship looks though now, with Marco Zadra pulling clear of Cato and Nielsen in the title race, with Ben Collins and Werner Lutberger losing touch a little bit, fourth for Ascari, and sixth equal, the regular combination of Lilian Brinner, Enzo Calderari and Angelo Zadra in the second of the BMF Scuderia Italia Ferraris. The team's championship looks like this though now, with Scuderia Italia clear of Den Bleu Vis, Team Ascari third, and racing for Holland fourth ahead of GLB Brums, and then R&M down in sixth place ahead of Pescarolo, and then Redmond and Bright.
It's the best race we've had for a long, long time. Yes, it was very hard, but we've had a run of difficult circumstances, and really the true potential of the whole team has not been shown, I don't think. And even now, we've still got lots of work to do. We're in good company. The Swedish team are just very good people. The Tampolis are good people, good cars, good competition. I'm absolutely delighted.
And Warren Carway and Martin O'Connell celebrating their win as well. You look like you enjoyed that race.
Yes, I did. We've had so many problems over the last little while, non-finishes and problems. To be back with a win, it's fantastic.
So confirmation of the result in SR2, a whole host of teams having difficulties here, but none more significant perhaps than Ted Bjork and Larry Alberto. That car disqualified for receiving its push start in the pit lane. So a win for O'Connell and Carway and Rowan Racing. Second, Denizardo and Mauro Prospero, with Renato Nobili and Massimo Monti finishing third after that spin, remember, early on in the race. A great return to form, a great second win of the year for Rowan Racing, for Martin O'Connell and Warren Carway. The drivers then for the SR2 podium for the second time this year on the top step, Warren Carway and Martin O'Connell. A very impressive result indeed by them. And the two ex-Formula 3 drivers adapting very well now to sports car racing. And Ted Bjork and Larry Alberto there on the podium, although that before the confirmation had come through of the disqualification. Ted Bjork and Larry Alberto still lead the championship though, but Carway and O'Connell much closer now. They score, and the Swedish-American team doesn't. Monti and Nobili fifth equal, then Sacamano and Tonetti seventh. But SR2 is hotting up nicely as the series heads next to Donington Park. The team's battle could hardly be closer. Lucchini and SRTS now equal on 63 points each, with Rowan Racing on 48 third, then BM Autosport fourth ahead of Odissio and Benvenuto, with SCI in sixth. Lucchini, Lola, Pilbeam and Tampoli all disputing the top six. A great fifth round of the championship. The series moves next to Donington Park.